Well, here it is, folks. This is how the series ended. Not with a roar, but with a sad little whimper. So now that the series has been cancelled after its freshman season, here's my ramble and postmortem on the second volume of my proxy the series of Thundercats Roar. Consider this as a parting gift of sorts towards the series, so let's get this started. Okay, after a 6-month hiatus, the series picked back up with Mandora's Law, in which Tygra attempts to bring law to Third Earth, and being a little estate and all, but given how the episode plays out, it's more like Tygra's lawful stupid. I mean, given how things were presented in previous incarnations, couldn't they? I think it would have worked better if they just made them basically peacekeepers, of sorts, and this will definitely be a recurring issue over the rest of this video, and not just as and the series, not just with Mandora's character either. I'm not going to be going too in depth in this case, but I'll definitely be giving just a brief summary and why each one's volume just doesn't work at all. So let's keep going. Episode 30, Hootie Thunder Road, in which the cats and the mutants have to race to collect a shipment of 50 Swords of Omens. I'm not sure how they managed to make 50 of an item which only Lino and Thundercats have access to, but the episode doesn't seem to be too concerned with this, so I guess I shouldn't be either. I mean, even though a chase scene is something that I have a soft spot for and should be a relatively easy to get right, given how they've been featured in animation in some way ever since the days of Wile E. Coyote, if not longer. It's clear to me that the idea was there for something, but it just didn't come together. Even if they looked like those cartoons comics that some people have spray paint on the side of their van or tattooed in their arm, even, and so, and yet they apparently don't work without the Islandera, so that's gonna be the first episode basically rendered pointless as by its denouement, and that's not gonna be the only one on this list, so let's keep this going. Okay, episode 31, Corporate Buyout, in which it's apparently raiders come to take Jan Jan's company after they're only bankrupting because they use the company's credit card too much. I bet if this wouldn't have happened if they were on the royal card for the King Utopia, it's just another bit for the Cheetara Corp, which is a gag that doesn't really pan out too much anyway. I honestly trust the Crimson Permanent Assurance to handle Corp Buyout more than this, given how, even though the buyer is quite literally from a skeleton company, and they're somehow able to get things back, so it's definitely another case where it's like the writers were submitting the first draft of their scripts as a final draft, which usually happens when the people in shows don't really care, but usually it tends to be when they just have something salvageable here. At least that's what I hope, but not this time. Episode 32. Hachiman, who is a character who I'm not the most familiar with. I mean, I know he appeared in the original one in the 80s. I don't think they used him too much in the early 11 version, but he would be a character that could have worked there. I mean, the plot doesn't really have much to do. It doesn't really do much with him. It's basically this Lino trying to had some extra batteries for their TV remote out, and despite how the show presents it, the Silverhawks intro is actually quite catchy, and I think it's also one of the shows that actually does have like a video on demand in the sense where if you want a physical copy, you just order it from the store, they'll press it for you. You know what I mean? Which is actually pretty neat. And as I pointed out before in my last video on this, it's not impossible to make a convincing plot out of this subject matter, given how Star Wars Evil was able to do it when they were going to quest by to find a charger of Star Wars wand. However, again, since they were able to just stuck it in the show, that also nullifies another plot, so that's another two that could definitely just seem like filler and a whole series full of it. Like all filler, no major nutritional content at all. So let's keep going. Episode 33, Schnorp, which is already had a bad enough title, but the episode itself doesn't even have the strongest footing to begin with, where Wily Cat and Kit are still using Snarf as a game console. They're currently playing a Pitfall clone where they're in it, and I'm not certain why that's happened, and even less so why there are so few games based on the series when it seems like a pretty video game friendly concept, but never mind. They go to the attic of their lair, not only to get out of a hiking trip led by Tygra, but also to find other game carts. One of them changes Snarf into Schnorp, a yodeling Swede, who, as I pointed out, seems like a less interesting version of Grogu from The Mandalorian, and it does end up saving the cats if they get caught in the spider's web, because of all the flora and fauna that Tygra had info on. He somehow, even though he's the smart one in the series, he didn't think to check on whether or not there'd be anything that might potentially kill them. I mean, honestly, hey, you would think that would be one of the first things to try and warn the others about, but apparently not. That's not the only episodes undermined by the characters' stupidity, but it's when Wily Cat and Kit think that we must have they're dropping their pens on the thing while I'm talking. Sorry, my retreated material is actually funny. It does that sometimes. So, Berbcules, episode 34, where the Berbcules make a robot guardian to try and protect themselves from the constant attacks and enslavement by other races, as namely the mutants and MallRa, but the robot goes alright, forcing the mutants and the Thundercats to make another one to stop it. That which, again, I don't know how you make the idea of a giant robot not entertaining, but they found a way somehow. I mean, this is what I mean about the show, taking ideas that seem really easy to make appealing, and yet somehow make them about as appealing as cabbage soup that's been watered down a bunch. Like the buckets eat sometimes. I mean, the It's a little more than a bumbling bucket of bolts, which makes the RA act of being defeated a lot less satisfying thing than you might think. Let's keep this going. Episode 35, Pumm-Ra. Rather than him being a different character entirely, like in the previous incarnations, this time it's just MallRa and unconvincing catsuit. Which, I mean, and if you thought I'd seen Jason Derulo in CGI cat fur was bad, had this show is just even worse about it because, like, I mean, the disguises and also the trials goes through just too much. Like how it's able to clear the video game challenge of the kittens without too much trouble when I'm still trying to get a handle on my Cyberpunk 2077 update. And Cheetara somehow not noticing that he automatically gave himself enchanted sneakers for the challenge under the speed. But I mean, honestly, I want to make clear that I'm not against changing things in a series if the changes make sense. Okay? Hey, I definitely also want to emphasize in general that I don't think every single adaptation needs to be exactly like a source material. Heck, last year, there's been adaptations I've really enjoyed, which it's actually managed to make a lot of worthwhile changes as from the source man standard or merit. So I'll definitely be bringing this up as well as other recent revivals that to further emphasize how the changes made in this show just did not work at all. Let's get this going. Okay, so episode 36, King of the Machines, ends where after seeing another one who's Queen of the Rats and as well dating Barbastella, the fear of bats doesn't make a lot of sense, and the whole premise is the machine uprising. The layer is full to new Windows updates, though, and there are funnier ways of not being able to understand like the smart tech than this. Seriously, I laughed harder at Cartman's Alexa being replaced with a Jim Bob than this. Seriously, I want one. And also, why do all the appliances in the lair have British accents and working class ones at that? Which is a shame because I normally like British humor and I definitely would know if my smart hurt devices are talking to me like they're Basil Fawlty from Fawlty Towers. But I shouldn't bring up one of the funniest TV shows I've ever seen and one of the least funny ones at this point. So let's keep going. So, episode 37, Sword Heist, which is another one about Taro who is out to get the Sword of Revenge from a sword shop which has weapons made out of bread and candy. If it had just been written at a different time, they could have tried to find out which ones were cake. But all things considered, this wouldn't even make it a Heist Con. And again, the heist films, in particular the Oceans franchise, is definitely fair game for spoofery. Heck, the new DuckTales with Louis 11 managed to get this right, where one of Louis' hustles is to try and steal the it list as from what's essentially like the bird version of Vogue's Vogue's Anna Wintour. It's the it's the plumage and glass especially get it, and wouldn't you know it, but she's also related as a mother of Mark Beeks, another her one which actually makes sense, poking fun, not only at tech magnates, but also this ongoing debate about how much power they should and should not have. But hey, I'm not here to get debate that. I'm here to ramble about a terrible reboot that nobody wanted to ask for, so let's keep this train rolling. Episode 38 sees Claudus, which is a textbook example of how not to reintroduce a character, which I bring this up because he not only somehow survived the destruction of Thundera in this version, but also was apparently not a good king at all. I mean, where he willingly allowed Thundera to fall to ruin at his watch, which, and while in the previous incarnations, it's something he regretted, whether or not he died of natural causes after being released from the Shadow Master's grasp, as where his spirit seen alongside Jaga's, and in 2011 version where he was killed during the siege of Thundera, here he somehow made it out and began imposing his reign on the other cats while giving line of free pass. You know, comparing someone like Mao with Small and his father, Harlow the King, it's easy to see where Mao's insecurities come from, because it turns out the king, who mainly wants to suit golden armor to appear larger, actually shows his own insecurities, and this reflects Mao's desire to get better at her, and despite his own, like kind of like a Lego Batman, he thinks everyone is stoked on him, even though a lot of people are just trying to humor him. Where Claudus, however, to my knowledge, is never given a reason why he behaves this way, and causing the cats to send him away back into space. He even has a photograph of Linus somehow, which may have been a potential plot point for post second season, but thankfully doesn't look like that's happening. So let's continue. Episode 39, Telethon, where they're trying to save Robert Bills again from drifting off into space. Which is not really that good a premise, where Cheetara has Dunces, and there's not a whole lot going on in this one, apart from pointing out how dumb Lionel is, as well as apparently Cheetara's psychic powers turning her into a Grinch when she's done too much, and I don't think it was intentional either. Like, the faces are just really bad. I mean, like, when they don't look like they're all the same, they get a little bit too expressive. I mean, honestly. And why are the mutants in Barbershop Quartet? Is it funny? No. Is it entertaining? No. Does it add anything to the material? The answer is still no. Let's keep going. Yeah, so MallRa, so like inspired there by Mall-Mincha game, Pumm-Ra tries to trap them in labyrinthian shopping mall. Although they like it so much they don't want to leave, and it's definitely nowadays trying to get them actually in there will be the problem. Again, I don't know how much of this this show is written pre-coronavirus, but it's clear to me that they didn't seem to change a whole lot there. I mean, it's just so it's like every episode I see, well, near the beginning, it seemed like they were at least trying to do something with it. That the quality seems to degrade further and further the further I go, so might as well keep digging in. Episode 41, Eclipsorr, which is a total eclipse of a brain fart to me, where they try to make the sun a Dyson spear here, and they had to go to space, and it's not nearly as entertaining as watching Rocket build something to go through time. I mean, like, Panthro was said to be one of the better header characters, as in one of the ones that suffered the least flanderization, but that's not saying a whole lot because it still comes up short. Her to mean, it doesn't really have the same kind of impact as just having a Star Destroyer here with a planet killer attached to it personally. And I'm just really wishing that they could have actually done something with this concept instead of just as trying to fit the square peg in the round hole where it doesn't belong. I mean, and nothing really feels connected. Where even with Rise of TMNT, I felt connections between Turtles as well as New York. I mean, which is a question you can get right in any version where, hey, you get a vibe with the crime going on in the city as well as their relationship, where they may not be biologically brothers in that version, they are as close as it with their bond, where and of course there's all silly scenes like the whole with the zip lining into a pool party right before they're going to try and take on some criminals, which will come again in the other parts of this video. Episode 42, WizzRa, another character from the 85 series who unfortunately didn't get a chance to be included in the 2011 one, and that would have fit pretty well. And I talked about how when they're breaking all the glass in the lair or just slathering jelly on it for some reason, he's in, and it's ends up being more obnoxious than the Wiz Robes and Zelda. I mean, it's kind of like using the Homos in Age of Calamity to zap them, at least in the demo. Definitely playing in the full version fairly soon, especially since like the biggest selling and Warrior spin to date, so kudos there. I mean, still 10 more episodes of this to this and I'm actually binged all these so you don't have to. And I want to emphasize this: you do not have to watch these. I kept my word to not watching these live, and you definitely don't have to unless you think for some reason things make too much sense to you. So let's continue. Episode 43, Thunder Dogs. Okay, I know MallRa was a thing before, but the way they approach this, it's like they haven't totally mind the whole mindset of wannabe hip grade school teachers yet. I mean, the kinds you see trying to reach their online students through TED Talk now. How, but still, I definitely can recommend one thing to help control the population and to have them spayed or neutered, a la Bob Burger. So it's no skin off my nose, at any rate. So, only have 9 more episodes left to wade through. Better get the scooper. It's gonna be a mess. Yeah. mini Mongor. So they all kind of messed up being the discount Donnie from Adventure Time with their Prince Starling's quest early in the season. And yet, somehow, this version is somehow much worse. I mean, it's basically a bigger mess than the mall one, as well as even scalping the PS5 Xbox series. Like I said before, probably not getting one until Horizon Forbidden West comes out, but that's beside the point. It's basically a monster that feeds off energy, and it grows smaller or larger depending on what kind of energy it is. So it's not even that original concept for an episode, which will also be the case with the next one as well. So let's continue. Swampy Johnny is a wet nuisance. So basically, he's some alien greaser wannabe. Who gets his car kickstarted by Cheetara for some reason. And even though he floods planets, that's basically he's like the unholy spawn of Swamp Thing and Johnny Bravo, who, despite all his doo-wop songs and wannabe 50s bravado, it's not really as entertaining as either one of the shows just mentioned, because fingers crossed about the CW's revival of the former being good. As for the latter, I pointed this out of my 25th anniversary Cartoon Network video, but I gotta say that having a cast member wannabe who lives at home isn't much of a stretch anymore. Making assumptions there. Episode 47. Okay, whoops. Episode 46. Jumping the gun. Tygra's garden, where he's under control by a plant which makes him eat soil instead of pizza or delicious cookies. He's in which he becomes basically manipulated by the plant, which is, spoiler, MallRa and MallRa. And you know, my favorite episode of the last show was Song of the Polars, which managed to get the experience down in one episode about why that version was a reimagining. And it took a concept which is admittedly pretty silly on paper and managed to have genuine emotional weight to it. I'm not saying that it's impossible to do nowadays. Other shows on enough network have been able to do it, but how while Gravity Falls may have had a very bizarre situation, but at its core, actually a very sweet story about growing up in the Northwest, and I've seen it multiple times, not even close to finding all the connections yet, but this still is not the worst to come, believe it or not. The Space Beam episode 47 is basically a discount Starkiller Base, all things considered, which will destroy the planet out of whoever grabs the beacon. And also, what have they done to Lunatics in this case, where those were another villain faction the 1985 show, and one of the more memorable ones at that. Not only is the design the usual mess like someone scribbled on a cocktail napkin or a pizza box, but it was definitely, they weren't trying to actively root against hence the other ones too much. In fact, while they were rivals, they did indeed see the Thundercats as a common enemy of sorts, and they would plot with each other if the situation called for it. I mentioned this before, bears mentioning it again. It is possible to tell a cohesive story in the runtime of about 10 minutes or so, being cohesive garbage, not the same as being cohesive story. I mean, even if the story involves like Rice Achievement T making an entire episode about how it's some pizza restaurant animatronics going crazy all Five Nights at Freddy's, it still fits the setting nicely where not only of the rule world but of also the absurd nature of how they can work, and it also how gives a reason why, even though I'm thinking those restaurants are trying to reopen, there's a reason why they phase out the animatronics. Finds that Freddy's definitely not helped that image. Thank you, Scott Cawthon, for making your nightmares all of ours too. We're all on the home stretch now with episode 48, Plonsmas, where here not only do the Plundar our tribe have their own holiday, they have their own version of Krampus as well. But overall, even though it's not going to be the worst holiday special of the lot here, it's still worse than Cole's stale fruitcake as gifts like this go. Not nearly as entertaining like Wonder Woman 84 in the privacy of your own home, or having Steffi evolve in Smash. Both of which be much you could talk about, so let's keep going. Only one more to deal with, right? A few hundred before the last three. Yeah. Okay, so episode 49, Killing Time. I mentioned this in my last video on the series, where in an attempt to try and be rid of Thundercats, MallRa keeps hibernating for 1,000 years, only to find that the cats keep coming back as well. And in one timeline, the cats basically become the planet itself, which again makes you wonder if someone slipped something Mountain Dew. Who, in any case. They had not. The show was just weird. And not in a good way. Hey. I'm not saying it's impossible. You can definitely be weird and still be good. But it's just this show fails at that, in every conceivable way, which will be apparent when I talk about the next episode on this list. The final three, so thankfully nearing the end of this tripe. Okay, so episode 50, Groon, which is the chronological end of the series. It's pretty terrible, but it's a marginally better musical than the Cats movie was. Oh, that's right. This episode is a musical which features the musician Thundercat as Groon, who, and again, much like Destruction of Planet itself, they played Groon's betrayal of the kingdom and throne for laughs. Have some in this version, even though how betraying the kingdom's weaknesses to MallRa in both previous versions was definitely not a funny moment. I'm at least he's a third to 40% and done with my WFC Siege crit, but when Megatron was addressing his troops on Kaon, it was not played comically. Even the sillier adaptation of the show, whenever there's a serious situation on screen, is presented as such. Despite what they're claiming denouement, no lessons have been learned, and no actual value education and entertainment has been had here. I mean, which is a real shame because so many shows on and off the network have been able to offer so much. I mean, in Quake of the Creek, he has taught about inclusivity. I mean, in Victor Valentino, actually, he provides a very unique interpretation of Mexican culture. I mean, even like OKKO showed how your past does not not necessarily mean the same for your future. I mean, and even so, I'm not really into like Steven Universe. Hers definitely showed how what effect this can have on a person's well-being, and in that season, and it's clear to me he that he that I mean, 7 years ago I was making fun of that series, but now that's over, I can say, hey, that it genuinely surprised me, hey, and how heavy it was. I mean, like a deconstruction, like what happens to a child hero when there's no more threats to face. Face. I'm not gonna spoil it, but if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. Because I'm gonna stay focused on taking this out. Episode 51, the first Thundsgiving, which will also be the last. I mean, and you think, Hank, people mistaking Woodstock for a cannibal is annoying? I mean, having the cats try to save the dinner, to be honest, is far worse. I mean, one of my favorite traditions is personally watching the Indiana Jones trilogy and keeping an eye out for the Pikachu balloon in the Mises Parade. It was the first unveiled the 25th anniversary of the series. And again, even though I used to be way more reluctant to accept the change of that one, they made some good arguments for how they managed to a whole series about the games in the anime where they basically said, okay, we're going to be doing this, we're going to be including some of that. I mean, we're going to be visiting this area, we're going to be talking to that character here, some of the good, some of the bad, bit of both. Also, oh, why did Tygra have his vault just hidden by the fridge magnets? That's one of the most commonly nudged items in your entire kitchen. I mean, at least Rick had the foresight to arrange the flies in his lab in the garage, and only he would know it was out of place. It's because he's just that crazy. I mean, he being a misanthropic subversion of Emmett Doc Brown. You know what I mean? However, it has gotten to the part which I actually did find actually kind of funny. The fart bike. Like, why is it that of all the times to try to make me laugh intentionally, the only things that managed to be timeable enough to make it do so were just the fart jokes that got me. I guess because I wasn't expecting it, and my expectations were really low. I mean, it's not even like Louie is like a snake spelling the wagon route. This is like what the snake left out of its behind, and the tracks of the wagon route that ground and head into the dirt. I mean, it's this show is so bad it's not even worthy of the usual similes to describe it. But and this is definitely a true of the final episode they aired of this sludge. So let's get this going. Episode 52, Mandora Saves Christmas. But at this point, nothing can save the show. it's unsalvageable. I mean, this episode could have been as something even more demented, like the Night Santa and Crazy with Weird Al, or some of South Park's specials, like A Woodland Critter Christmas. That's all. I'm not gonna spoil it. Hey, let's mean that if you've seen it, you most likely know what I'm talking about. How it's I mean, because this character, they took a character which is essentially a a reasonable authority figure in the 1985 version of the show, who what regrettably was not included in the 2011 version, but I could think of ways they could have, and turned her into a fusion of Carol Danvers and RoboCop, with none of the redeeming qualities of either one. On 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 which, and the whole title is kind of misleading, hitting where but Lino does agree to help Chris Kringle in this case, where on the grounds that goodwill and cheer are two of my favorite intangible concepts. And there's another funny joke. Now I don't have to suffer for it. And yet, even though they do get hit all the people on Third Earth, what they want for Merry Christmas, Mandora still locks them up. Not pictured is the ELFS squad busting them out and stuffing a donut in her mouth after wrapping her up. Merry Christmas, you filthy animals. Basically, when you look at a spoof from Mel Brooks, Hooks, or something like Airplane, Pain, you could tell how that the people involved with those movies understood the material they were working with, respected it, and poked fun at all things don't make any sense about their verses. In some cases, they even sell a joke more. They managed to do it so well that they're my first exposure to all these ones. Like, this show, however, is toxic and spiteful. I've said this before, I said it again. And there's no point in reimagining a series if you're not going to do something that convinces fans of the existing material that that your version is worth their time. The fact that they didn't even make any tie-ins for this series definitely shows how this kitty was dead on arrival and was like a bigger mess than one of my oldest cats have with her digestive issues. And when you have so many good newer versions of Ninja Turtles, Transformers, especially new DuckTales, it's easy to see why, while a lot of those ones got more than one season, this one is one and done. So it's a major red flag that it hasn't even been promoted as much. So my final word is I don't really want to see this again. So if you want a comedic version of the series, don't watch this. MallRa Heroes of Pure Heart was definitely what this show should have been. So now that I'm done, the next video I have in mind before I tackle Sephiroth and Smash will be about another mess this year, but one that'll be more fun to talk about. That'll be all for now. Later.